Right, good morning, everybody. I'm Nick Windsor. I'm chair of the MS Society, and I'd like to wish you a very warm welcome to today's AGM. Joining me here at the front are Nick Mobley, our CEO, and Stuart Secker, our treasurer and chair of Audit, Risk and Finance, and Amber Esposito. We've got a number of trustees and chairs of national councils and members of the executive group in the room. In fact, they're probably in a majority by the look of who's in the room. But of course, we do have the AGM webcast, so there could easily be thousands of people on the webcast. So we will be using that facility both to enable people to watch live, or also I think it's available to watch later on. If it's a really good one, I'm sure you'll all want to go home and watch it again and again and again. So the agenda is on page 27 of the AGM booklet, if you'd like to follow that. And just before starting with that business, there are a few housekeeping matters to deal with. If you have hearing difficulties, there's an induction loop, but please do sit near the front of the room to make sure you're within its range. We aren't planning any fire practices today, so if the alarm does sound, it's real and you'll need to evacuate the building by the nearest fire exit. You'll be directed by MS Society staff to a place of safety, and once you're outside the building, the assembly point is along the Edgware Road to your left. In terms of refreshments, there are water facilities in the room, and drinks are also available next door where you had drinks before the meeting started. After the meeting, lunch will be available in the same room, and we'd be delighted if you were all able to join us and continue the discussion. There are toilets in the corridor at the rear of the room, the back left corner there, or back through the main reception area. Accessible toilets are well signed. If you need a rest area, you can use the settees in reception or the seating in the cafe where you had your refreshments earlier. There's also a small room on the third floor with soft seating and a bed if you need further respite. Please speak to one of the members of staff if you'd like to avail yourself of that. There's a care assistant, Pfizer, at the back corner there. Welcome, thank you for coming to help us. And she'll be on duty throughout this event if you need her assistance. If you have any other questions or queries, please feel free to go to the registration desk where someone will be available to help you throughout the meeting. Right, so starting with the formal business, we've had apologies for absence from those listed on the slide. Unless I hear any other apologies, we will move on and take those as the ones that have been submitted. Right, so as I say, the procedural arrangements for the AGM are on pages 27 and 28 of the AGM booklet, and I'm not proposing to run through these one by one. As in previous years, the electoral reform services are acting as our independent scrutineers to ensure voting has been conducted fairly and accurately. This, of course, includes the postal and online voting, which closed on Thursday. Morning. If you haven't voted in advance to voting today, then you will have received coloured ballot papers as you arrived. Can I just check whether anybody's got coloured ballot papers to submit. Right, okay. Thank you, sir. So you'll be able to put those, you'll be able to submit those as we go through the particular items. Our teller today has just joined us, which is Albert at the back, who will be managing the process of collecting those at the appropriate times. You'll need a yellow paper for the trustee elections and a green paper for the National Council elections. Trustee candidates' personal statements were on pages 10 to 12 of the AGM booklet. They are Emily Revis, Karen Jones, Daushan Humza, Polly Williams and Kerry Smith. Those who are elected will start either their first term or second term on 1st of January 2020. Candidates' profiles for those standing as National Council members were also in the AGM booklet from pages 14 to 26. As you probably know, in these elections, you can only vote for candidates in your nation or in England if they're in your region in England. So that means that there may not be the opportunity for you to vote if there wasn't a vacancy in a region or we didn't have a candidate in a region, if you see what I mean. At this year's meeting, we have one specific resolution on the MS Society's strategy for 2020 to 2024, a very important moment for us, having refreshed the strategy. We also have two more standard financial resolutions, the annual report and accounts of 2018 and the appointment of auditors. All the resolutions are recommended by the board. I and Nick will speak to the first of these resolutions. Stuart will speak to the second and third, ably assisted by Vicky. In each case, after we've all spoken, the floor will be open to members of the charity who are here today to discuss these resolutions. This part is open to members to submit questions. At that point of the discussion, questions should be focused on the resolutions themselves. There'll be an opportunity for further discussion later on. We'll bring a mic to you if you wish to contribute, both to the discussion of the resolutions and subsequently. And that's so that obviously your voice can be heard on the webcast. If you do want to make a contribution, please raise your hand or ask your neighbour to raise theirs. If you can't, we'll bring a mic to you. And please also give your name before starting your contribution. I'll do my best to allow everybody to have a chance to speak, both as we discuss the resolutions, but subsequently in the open forum. But, you know, as in previous years, there's always been the opportunity to continue discussion slightly more informally over lunch if there are any particularly contentious issues. And certainly I will be staying for lunch, and the executive team and some of the trustees and council chairs will be staying too. So this now brings us to the minutes and matters arising from last year's AGM. The minutes from last year are on pages 32 to 35 in the booklet. I'm not aware of any amendments having been put forward, so I'd intend to sign these as an accurate record. But if anyone has any other comments on their accuracy, then please would you say? Good, thank you. Therefore, I will at some point shortly sign the minutes. I'm now going to close voting on the election of trustees and National Council members using the green and yellow papers. If you have a ballot paper that needs to be collected, please raise your hand and Albert will collect your ballot paper. I should say, says here, you can submit all of your ballot papers on all the resolutions if you want to now, to save yourself the trouble. Do you want to do that? Good. You can just put your feet up after that. Right, at this point of the meeting, we report back on last year's resolutions. Last year there were two resolutions, one on the Stop MS appeal and the other on growing the MS Society's community. And there's a fuller update on these on page 28 of the AGM booklet. I won't repeat everything that's been said there, but I'd like to really express our very strong sense of excitement at the upcoming launch of the public phase of the Stop MS appeal, and express our gratitude to all the hard work done by staff to get us to this point. The Board of Trustees had a chance to see some of the material yesterday, and it is truly inspiring and moving. We're, as we flagged to you last year, we're working hard to find ways to improve our engagement with our community, including the possibility of a free membership model and an alternative governance model. With last year's Growing the MS Society community resolution in mind, as his first duty, as his first AGM, I've asked Nick to provide an update on developments in relation to the engagement model. Nick.
Thank you very much, Nick. And may I say, before I get going, I'm hugely grateful to those of you who've travelled from really quite far afield to be with us today. So thank you very much. Your attendance and support is really hugely valued. Now, the MS Society as an organisation has a very clear purpose, which is to support the MS community. And so reaching and engaging with as many people as possible in the community is a really key priority. It was at the centre of our previous strategy and will remain so. You'll see when we talk about the proposed strategy for the coming 5 years. Now, Nick, as you mentioned, last year we proposed a resolution to look at how we can engage with more of the community, because there's definitely an opportunity to do that. And you unanimously agreed for us to explore what a new membership model could look like. And what I'm going to do today is to report on our progress and tell you what you can expect in terms of further developments in the coming months, if that's all right. Now, this is actually a very big project, as you can imagine. And since last year, we've really been focusing on two things. Now, the first thing that we've been doing is linking up with a number of other charities who in recent times have developed and evolved their membership models to see what we could learn when thinking about our circumstances. And you can see at the bottom of the slide behind me the people that we talk to in this regard. So Diabetes UK, Parkinson's, Carers UK, Alzheimer's, and so on. And if there's a big sort of message coming back from all of those organisations, it was that the development and evolution of their membership model was a positive thing and had gone well, and had in fact very definitely increased levels of support. It's also worth noting that in each of these cases they didn't suffer any adverse financial consequences from changing to a different model of engagement, which I think we can take some reassurance from, because that's obviously quite an important consideration. Now, in terms of specific feedback, we've just highlighted on the slide a number of the big points that came through, and it's perhaps worth just quickly touching on those. So the first point, as I've already said, is that across the 5, the changes that they made, which were different in each case, actually led to them being able to reach more of their community. So in a sense, the kind of core objective was achieved. Interestingly, their members wanted more diverse ways to be involved, and clearly a number of the charities tried to respond to that. Most of the charities have improved their online offer to make it easier to sign up to and access support and information, and I think there's a learning there for us. As I've said, the organisations didn't see a significant drop in income, and it's also worth noting, however, having made the point about an online offer, that all charities continued to provide a printed magazine as a sort of core element of the overall package of engagement and support. And again, I think there's learnings there for us. Now, so that was one big thing, talking to a number of charities, but also, and as you, I hope, would absolutely expect of us, we've been very keen to take the views of the MS community in its broadest sense, including, obviously, our members. And what I wanted to do was just to share with you some of the feedback that's been coming back to us as we started on this journey. And I think it's interesting and very, very pertinent as we think about how we want to take this forward. So the first very clear message was that people want us to reach out to more diverse parts of the MS community and reach out in different ways so we really can connect and engage much more broadly and deeply across the community. Interestingly, and this mirrors the experience of the other charities, members found the MS Matters magazine to be a really useful benefit, and I think we have to take heed of that. Another crucial element of what people valued in terms of membership was peer support and being part of the community. So in part it's about information, but in part it's about community and peer support. And that's what people are looking for. Interestingly, there was some confusion in some people's minds about what membership was and whether, in fact, even they were a member or not. So clearly there's something about the current arrangements that were not kind of clear in people's minds. It's also worth noting that the website, the MS Society website, was seen as a real valuable tool for people in terms of accessing information and some of the help they needed to manage their MS, which obviously is quite encouraging. Now, taking all of that together, certainly the feedback from other charities, but very specifically the feedback we've had thus far from members and the broader community, we're starting to create the outlines of a new, let's call it, engagement offer that we could put together that hopefully will really respond to what people are looking for and help us reach a lot more people. So the key elements of this are, firstly, that we absolutely want to retain MS Matters, but we want to refresh that and make the content more relevant and engaging. And we're very, very keen to get views on precisely what's going to speak to the needs of the community. So we're going to want to talk about that. It's clear where we are at the moment and from what we've heard that we need to start thinking about creating a new online experience or platform for supporters to help them access the information, support and opportunities to get involved in a way that's really convenient and based on their own preference. So there is some sort of online platform that's going to be very important, and that's quite new. We are very conscious that as we speak, the level of engagement with the governance of the organisation is actually relatively light. And in fact, on average, only about 13% of the membership vote at the AGM, for example. And we want to get some feedback and have a dialogue about in what ways members and supporters would want to have their say or get involved in the broader running of the organisation. So that's going to be very, very important, and we want to sort of hear views on that. It's also important to say that local groups are an absolute cornerstone of this organisation since its foundation as a local group in 1953, I believe it was, and we absolutely want to work with local groups and support them in promoting local events online, for example, and making sure that people know about them. We're also very conscious that local groups do rely quite heavily on membership fees as a source of income, And were we to move away from a paid membership model, we would want to explore with local groups how we can absolutely ensure that they may maintain their sort of financial security and are in a position to do what they want to do. So broadly in the round, that's what we're looking at. Now, I've mentioned already that a new online offer is going to be a very important and new bit of what we want to provide for supporters and people who want to engage in the society. And actually, I think this is a very, very exciting area where we could really make a difference in terms of enabling people to connect with us and engage with us and benefit from the information and support and resources we can offer. And we've already had some feedback from the community about what we might want to include in an online offer of that kind. And I'll just sort of share with you some of the kind of early feedback that we've had from people. And you can kind of see it here on this slide, which indicates some of the sort of potential features of an online portal or platform that might be of interest. And you can see it might include, for example, amongst other things on the list, much better and richer information about what services, whether MS Society services or other relevant services, are available near you in your locality, would be one example of the kind of information that I think people would clearly really value, as well as latest news and so forth. And you can kind of see the list of ideas that's sort of already starting to come out. Now, we've got a long way to go to develop this, and one of the kind of key principles that we want to adopt is to develop this in partnership with people from the community. So we've identified a specialist digital agency who can work with us, and we're going to want to draw together a group of people from the community who can really work with us on developing and maybe trying out various iterations of this until we get it absolutely right and something that's really going to work for people. I think that's going to be a very exciting process. So over the next 3 months, we're going to be really focusing on that, and hopefully we'll get to a place where what we've got is something that really, really responds to what people within the MS community need and would find helpful. So just looking ahead, excuse me, it's jumping around a little bit. There's a lot of work for us to do over the next 9 months, and I won't read through all the items listed here in terms of what we're going to do by the end of the calendar year and what subsequently, but I suppose if one were to sort of pick up some big themes, one big theme obviously is that we want to engage a lot more and a lot more deeply on a number of these topics, be it MS Matters, online platform, how we do governance, financial implications and ramifications. So we're going to be really seeking to reach out and get people involved and really respond to what you're telling us is going to work. There's obviously quite a lot to do based on that engagement to get elements of this new sort of support offer package sorted, be it revised content for MS Matters, a really good platform online for people to use and so forth. So we're going to be doing quite a lot of work on that. And then the other thing that we will be thinking through is really what the sort of formal options in terms of membership structures and so forth are, so that we can put recommendations to next year's AGM. So there is quite a long road of winding on this, but I suppose what I would say from where I sit and having joined this journey midway through, because this has been something obviously that's been under discussion for literally a year now and sort of in contemplation for rather longer. So I would say I'm really, really excited about the direction of travel now. I'm absolutely convinced we can do much better in serving and supporting the community, and I really believe and hope and think it's very important that by doing so we will be able actually to establish relationships with a much broader group of people within the community, because though we reach many people, it's probably only a minority of people out there either living with MS or affected by MS, and we really, I think, can do much more. And I do think that this program, which is, my view, starting to shape really nicely, will be a very, very important building block for us in terms of reaching out, making those connections in the future. So I think, if I may, I'll stop there, Nick, and pass over to you.
And if you'd like to stay there, Nick, let's just check This is not a formal resolution this year, but it's indication that there may well be a significant resolution next year. So I think we should give an opportunity for people to express some views on the journey that we've made so far on this, and whether that seems to be a sensible direction. So can I seek any questions on that, or indeed anything else coming out of last year's AGM? I sort of thought you were going to ask a question. Yes, just wait. Could you just wait for the mic? Thank you.
Which is small. Okay. I'm Kate Mitchell. I'm from the southwest, from the South Devon group, and I've really come up specifically today. I've been involved with the society for a very long time, and I have been having conversations with one or two people about the fact that somehow or other, in my area at any rate, groups seem to be feeling a bit distant from what's going on at National Centre. So I just want to say I'm really pleased to hear what you say, because it feels as if this is being picked up. And to me, it feels incredibly important, not only to make life as easy as possible for everybody affected by MS to have as much access as possible, but also to make the way smooth for group volunteers. There are more and more regulations, both with regard to data protection, health and safety, finance, and all the rest of it. Can I just make a plea for understanding that the majority of volunteers are either affected themselves by MS or are very involved being as carers for people affected by MS. There are very, very few fully fit, raring to go people, and anything that adds to the onus of what they have to do because of regulations is likely to put people off, and you really can't afford to do that. Okay, that's it.
Thank you. Do you want to?
Well, if I may say, thank you so much for coming in person to make those points, which are very powerfully and well made. And I would say, in my whatever it is, 8-9 months since joining the society, I've had the chance to get out to quite a few local groups, and long may that continue, incidentally. And I absolutely hear your message loud and clear, and it's very, very much resonates with what I've heard from people around the country. We're very sensitive to the burdens, some which are unavoidable, but that are being placed on groups, and really keen to find ways in which we can get close to groups, respond to groups' needs, and make life as easy as possible. Because at the end of the day, the bottom line is it's about people at the front line doing great work, and we're here to sort of serve and support and help that.
I mean, I would just add to Nick's words, just so it's on the record, that we see the local groups as absolutely core to the society, and our commitment is complete to them. So whatever new model there is, we'll take that into account. Right, it looks like that's all the questions on that. So we'll now come to Nick. I think you can probably sit down. We'll come to. Do you think so? Oh no, you can stay there. You stay there. Don't sit down. Yeah, I've prepared well for this. So we'll come to the first resolution at this year's AGM, which is the resolution on MS Society's strategy for 2020 to 2024. The resolution is that this AGM endorses the MS Society's strategy for 2020 to 2024. You'll be able to, I think you'll have already cast your votes, and obviously by internet and post have already come in on this resolution. This resolution is the outcome of a very significant amount of work by the executive team and by the Board of Trustees to think about, I think a very successful previous strategy and how the world's moved on and what we see as the most appropriate approach to help people affected by MS in the next 5 years. So I'm glad you still stood up because you can talk to that now.
Great, and thanks, Nick. I'm very happy to do so. As Nick, as you said, we're coming to the end of the 5-year duration of our last strategy called Together to Beat MS, and I would very much echo what you've just said, actually, and I think I can say it, having not been involved in any way, shape or form with the creation or delivery of the strategy, having only just arrived. But when you look back and see what's been achieved over the last 5 years, it really is good, actually, across a number of the areas which are really important to the community. We haven't achieved everything we wanted to achieve, but there have been really notable successes, be it in research, in services and support, in advocacy, and other areas. So I would completely concur that it's been a really sort of successful strategic period. Be that as it may, we've now, given that the strategy runs out for us in December 2019, we've actually spent a huge amount of time over the last few months thinking about, well, what next? And what we hope is that we can secure your agreement and support to a new strategy running from 2020 for a further 5 years. Now, it's worth, I suppose in terms of telling the story, I think we should first off just remind ourselves that this is an organisation with a real sense of purpose and a high purpose and very strong foundations in the community. So a fantastic history dating back to 1953 when the first local group was set up. An organisation that is absolutely for and of what is a wonderfully strong MS community in the UK, and really amazing and a privilege, actually, I must say, coming to it to now be part of that community and helping that community. And of course, it's an organisation that has a wonderful and committed staff group, but more importantly, those 300 people sit within a family of thousands of volunteers who every day give of their very best to make life better for people with MS. And between us, people within the organisation, the volunteer groups, those who support in one way or another, as I said, I think we've made a real difference over the last 5 years. And I suppose the thought and the reason for saying that when thinking about the new strategy is I think we have to be true to who we are and true to our roots. So what you'll see is a strategy which is, has real continuity and consistency with what went before and is completely unapologetic about that. Indeed, I think it's absolutely the right thing to do. But equally, I think there's a chance for us to do some really new and exciting things building on that great foundation. Now, if we think about the world we're in for the next 5 years, and I suppose that's the sort of starting point for any reflection on strategy and what we need to do, I think it's important to acknowledge we live in a very, very fast changing world. And of course, there's massive changes and indeed challenges across wider society, economic pressures, digital revolutions, etc., huge change going on that we see in the news every day. And of course, within the MS community, which itself is part of that wider society, I think there are particular changes to flag. And in particular, given the wonderful and welcome advances in treatments, health and care, actually, one of the implications of that is the MS community itself is becoming very much more diverse in terms of its needs and wants and what it requires. And I think we need to recognise that. The other thing that I think we do need to acknowledge, and this is a bit of kind of honest self-reflection, I suppose, is that although we're hugely proud of the reach and connection we do have through our wonderful staff, volunteers and membership, if we're absolutely honest, we are only reaching a minority of people within the community, let alone building enduring and meaningful relationships of support and so on with them. You only have to think of the numbers. There's 140-odd thousand people living with MS in the UK. Around and about them, if we think about the community of people not only living with MS but affected by MS, there's probably 1 to 2 million people out there who are directly and seriously affected by the condition. Well, our membership numbers stand at a few tens of thousands, and even if you look at all the reach we get through our channels, it's actually much less than that broader community. So there's work to do. I think what we can take from that is that for all the good things there are opportunities to do more and serve better and reach more people, and that's a very exciting opportunity, but we should absolutely do so being true to who we are, true to the needs of the community, and building on those strong foundations that I mentioned. Now, it's important to say that in terms of developing this strategy, which came to the board in around about June time, we've been really keen to hear from and respond to the needs and priorities of people living with and affected by MS. So we really have tried to reach out as far as we can to get thoughts and advice and feedback. Of course, there's been a lively conversation within the organisation itself, within the staff group, but more importantly, really, we've had thoughts and input from over 800 volunteers and members who've been kind enough to share their views on what really matters to them, and we're very, very grateful for that. Now, if I were to try to sort of summarise at very, very high level some of the kind of big themes coming through, you can see them on the slide. So a big call to arms to try to reach and engage more widely and more deeply within the community, which we would absolutely recognise as important. In terms of specific priorities that people have, well, different people have different priorities, but there is clearly a strong body of support, in a sense, for continuing the three big bits of our mission and activity that we pursue at the moment. So research is hugely important, providing hope for the future. Help in terms of the business of living well with MS day by day and confronting the many challenges that people with MS face, hugely important and absolutely recognised by those who fed back. And equally, it was clear that for many people, the role that the MS Society can play in terms of helping to make the voices of people with MS heard loud and clear from Downing Street and the corridors of power and beyond is really valued by the community as well. The other thing that did come out, and it sort of comes back to the point we were talking about before, is that there clearly are ways in which the organisation can develop and improve and become more modern and more responsive as well, and that came through as well. So in a sense, that was a nice affirmation, but also a bit of a call to action that there's more to be done and work to be done. Now, in terms of how things have come out, I'd like to just kind of give you a guided tour at a high level of how the strategy is looking, and I'll do so over the next slide or two, if I may. This is the strategy on a page, I suppose you'd say, and we'll find ways of creating something a bit more engaging in terms of when we come to launch this formally and more publicly. But if I may just make a few points about it. The first thing is our vision remains absolutely the same as it has been. So the vision we're striving for is a world free from the effects of MS. Which is, I think, a bold and aspirational statement, something that we'll have to work out hard over a long period of time to move forward. Our mission, which is very much building on the previous mission we had and recognises both the hope element of what we do in terms of research, but also the help element in terms of support, is about transforming lives and stopping MS. Now, I'm going to move on. We then outlined three what we're calling impact goals, which is really statements as to where we would really like things to be in 5 years' time at the end of the strategy from the point of view of people living with and affected by MS. And I should just say, before just taking you through those, that what we've tried to do there is to distill down and simplify the 7 goals from our previous strategy into a more kind of manageable and easily narratable 3 goals, but very much keeping true to the sense and intent and content that lay behind those 7 goals, which were the result of a long conversation with the MS community. So we've tried to keep absolutely true, if you like, to the significant consultation that happened a while back, maintain the goodness of those goals, but condense them into a form that's really sort of simple and easy for people to communicate, because 7 is quite difficult for people to remember. So if I can just run through those, and I'll tell you a little bit about what we're thinking of doing under each of those. So the first one, if I can just get the presentation to stick, is about effective treatments and preventing MS. And this is really our research impact goal. And there's 3 components in terms of what we want to do to help advance that are worth specifically calling out. So the first thing is we are intending to continue working closely with national and international partners to really focus on the causes of progression in MS, where there's still a lot of work to do, and obviously developing high potential treatments that could address progression. There's been huge and very valuable work already on the relapsing remitting stage of the disease and some of the immunomodulation approaches that can be taken, but underlying progression we've got work to do on. The second big focus, which we've actually been making great progress on in the last year and we're very, very excited about, is establishing a national infrastructure to do clinical trials really rapidly and accelerate, in effect, the time it takes at the moment from an interesting and promising compound becoming available through to going through a properly organised clinical trials process and bringing it through to treatment. And we've been working very hard with some of the leading research scientists focusing on MS in the UK to develop the infrastructure and approach which will enable us to do that and hopefully take not just one but a number of compounds through a very well organised clinical trial process and really compress the timelines. So we're very excited about that, and we're hoping to let a big programme grant on that by the end of the year, which is great. And Susan, who's here, has been leading that piece of work magnificently. The other area under our research theme or goal that's worth highlighting is that we want to continue funding research into understanding what the risk factors associated with MS are. And we hope that by developing our understanding of risk factors, we may ultimately be able to recommend prevention strategies. So that's thinking about the longer term goal of driving towards prevention if possible. So I think a really exciting program of work there, and we were fortunate to hear from some of the leading research scientists at our board yesterday, and just hearing their degree of passion and enthusiasm and optimism for the future, albeit recognising the journey there is yet to travel, was really heartwarming. Now, the second impact goal we're focusing on, we're describing as people living well with MS. And there's really 3 things that we want to achieve, if we can, for the community under this heading. So the first is we obviously have quite a rich set of services already, be it at local group level or nationally, which are available to people with MS and are designed to help support people manage their conditions and live well with MS. And we absolutely want to develop that portfolio of services and support, and I think we will see increasingly not only wonderful local groups very much continuing, but an increasingly, I hope, useful and targeted set of national services, many potentially delivered digitally or by remote means, which will really help and support people with their specific needs. The second focus for us under this goal is about really trying to do more for friends, families and carers, the people who support those living with MS. And we do a certain amount in that area already, but we really feel we can raise our game there and do a great deal more to provide people with the information, support and community that they need in their roles as people affected by MS and supporting those living with the condition. The third element, which I'm personally very excited about, having come from an NHS background, is really thinking what we can do and raising our game on tackling the woeful variation of clinical services across the country. And at the moment, there's great services. There's some services which are very poor. It's very, very patchy. We really believe that we can make a difference in terms of raising the bar across the country and helping great clinicians learn from each other and implement best practice. And we're having a very, I think, interesting and exciting set of conversations with other charity partners, with some of the leading clinical professionals about how we might go about that. And it's already starting to sound, I think, very exciting. So those are the three specific themes under that goal. And finally, I would like just to touch in terms of goals on the third leg of the strategy, which is about connected communities and powerful voices. And this is really recognizing that we want to do as much as we possibly can to help connect people within the community so that they can provide mutual support. And we obviously do a lot of that through local groups and through some of our forums, but I think there's a whole new level we can take that to. We're really keen to explore and promote ideas around that. The second theme is all about giving people the tools that they need to make their voices heard. So we obviously do a lot of national campaigning. That's great. We'll continue to do that, but we really want to provide people with the tools, the support and assistance so that they can campaign on local issues that really matter to them as part of making the voice of the community heard. And then the third theme under this broad goal is that we want to continue to work and indeed do more work to raise levels of understanding of MS in society at large, and obviously particularly in the kind of policy and employment communities where people often encounter barriers. So three broad themes, I think very much true to the direction of travel we've always been on, but I think there are some real differences there in terms of really focusing on ensuring what we do addresses the needs of the community in all parts of the community, harnessing the power of digital technology, really raising our game in terms of advocacy for clinical services, and really trying to help sort of support and empower and engage the community in a way that will enable the community to provide mutual support and make its voice heard. Now, just to finish off, I did also want to mention that that's all very well and good, and I think increasingly within the organisation we're getting really excited about the plans that are starting to shape and the potential that they have to make a difference. But we do recognise that if we are going to want to deliver on those plans, there's actually quite a lot we need to do to transform the way in which we work as an organisation. If we just go on as we are, we're simply not going to be able to do everything we want to do. And on this page, some of the kind of key themes that we're going to be pursuing are just listed, and I don't want to take long going through them. We've touched on a number of them, but there's a big theme which is around really listening to and understanding and engaging with the community, and in particular really taking forward diversity and inclusion both within our organisation and in how we try to approach the community. We absolutely want to do more in terms of data, digital and tech, and the reason there is because that's the way in which we'll be able to connect with many people in the community. We absolutely want to work in much better partnership with other organisations. We want to nurture our people in terms of the staff group and the volunteer group who contribute so much. And we recognise we've got to make absolutely best use of the very precious and scarce resource that's available and generously donated by the community, and therefore being as efficient and effective as possible in terms of the way that we work is a real theme as well. So that sort of gives you a sense of what is really quite a comprehensive programme of change that we're going to have to undertake if we want to do all of the things that we said in the sort of headline of the strategy, and if we want to deliver on those goals. So in summary, I would say, and I hope this will come across, this is a strategy which has a very strong element of continuity. This organisation is absolutely going to stay true to its roots and true to its purpose and true to its origins. But we do see real exciting opportunities to go to the next stage, go further, do better, respond more directly to people's needs, connect with more people, and that's really what this strategy is about. So I will stop talking at that point, but very much commend this to you as a direction for the next 5 years.
Thank you, Nick. So I should add that Vicky Annis, who is our Executive Director of Finance, Strategy and Impact, is sat at the front here and led this work, and therefore our thanks to her, and an opportunity for you to question her either in response to this resolution or later on or over lunch. So this is a formal resolution to the AGM, so we'll have an opportunity now for you to ask questions on this resolution. Okay, no questions on that. So we have already, I think, collected all the ballot papers, so that resolution, voting on that resolution is closed. And we'll move on to the resolutions 2 and 3, which we're going to take together, as is traditional. They're both linked to the financial matters. Resolution 2 is this AGM receives the annual report and accounts of the MS Society 2018, following the audit by the MS Society's auditors, Hayes McIntyre. Resolution 3 is the AGM appoints Hayes McIntyre as the MS Society's auditors for the 2019 annual report and accounts. And to introduce this item, I'm going to hand over to Stuart, who will speak on behalf of the board. Stuart.
Thank you, and you'll probably be disappointed to hear my name's not Nick. These two resolutions, receiving the annual report and accounts and appointing auditors, formal part of every AGM. Obviously, as an accountant, I think the most interesting. No, not really. Anyway, the 2018 accounts have been signed by the MS Society's auditors, who we would also intend to reappoint as our auditors. They've been our auditors for the last 3 years. We have a good relationship with them. They kind of give us good feedback and do a thorough and effective job. And we oversee their work through the Audit, Risk and Finance Committee, which, as Nick mentioned earlier, I chair. The Board of Trustees recommends you vote for both these resolutions, and I've asked Vicky, our Executive Director of Finance, Strategy and Impact, to provide a brief overview of the 2018 financial position.
Thanks, Stuart. As Stuart says, I'm going to give you a brief summary of the annual accounts for the year ended December 2018. The full financial statements are available in the annual report and accounts, which is on our website, the MS Society's website. These accounts have been prepared under SORP 2015, the accounting regulations applicable to charities. Firstly, I want to start by thanking the finance volunteers that have diligently overseen their group finances. All our groups are now regularly using accounting online, which means we have accurate and timely financial information, and making the production of the annual report and accounts so much easier and quicker. To each and every one of our finance volunteers, thank you ever so much for all you do during the year. Turning to the financial position itself, I reported at the last AGM that we did not anticipate seeing growth in 2018, and despite a difficult external economic environment, we have maintained the high levels of income we generated in 2016 and 17. We hope, through the extraordinary generosity of our supporters and the MS community, we will be able to maintain that level of income in 2018 and throughout the new strategic period, even though we are entering a period of considerable uncertainty. Oops, that does work quickly. Looking at the types of income in a little more detail, our legacy programme continues to be an important source of income for the MS Society, and for the third consecutive year we have received one large legacy, meaning that our total legacies are 400,000, and we are grateful to everyone who remembered us in their will. 11.9 million is an incredible tribute. In 2017, we held an amazing large fundraising event in honour of the late Jacqueline de Prey, netting over £1 million.